Good evening, everyone. Glad you could join us for our June 19th, 2020 council meeting. We proceed each meeting with the word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like, please feel free to join me. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and your grace and your mercy and the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. Lord, we lift up the name of Isaac Vincent to you today, Finley's little guy. I pray, Lord, for healing there and that things would go well. These things we pray in your name. Amen. Oh, forgot that. My bad. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our timing is just a little bit off, but anyway. Okay. Mr. Garrett, will you call this meeting to order, please?
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Grimes?
Here.
Pruitt?
Here.
Mel?
Here.
Ledbetter?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Bisbee?
Here.
Okay, you should have received copies of the city council meeting, May 26, 2020, and the special council meeting for June 3rd, 2020. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Make a motion for approval as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Okay, first up, we have our standing committees. And Mr. Hawkins, this is community development, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item on this portion of the agenda is a resolution requesting that the Faulkner County Tax Collector place a certified lien against real property as a result of incurred expenses by the city. This particular property is at 3290 Stone Road, and we have spent to date $4,207, which is a substantial amount of money to correct the problems at this piece of property. We have a resolution to be read for this item. It's resolution R2042. R2042.
This was I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, this was a very large cleanup. I think you've all got pictures of it. It's normally above the amount that you normally see in the city, but there was a lot hauled away here. And I think if you'll take a look at your pictures, it was a pretty big job. I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, go ahead.
Motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to place a lien on this property located at 3290 Stone Road. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution approving the low bid for pavement projects, including Ed Speaker and Stanley roads. We have a resolution to be read for this item. It's resolution R2023.
And Miss Jamie Bryce will be here speaking for this tonight. Finley's out of pocket.
Jamie, are you there? There you are. Yes, you are here.
So, you have for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, request that you approve the low bid.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution for the 2020 project pavement projects for the Transportation Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance amending the zoning guide in Conway zoning code for property at 1600 South Donaghy Avenue. It's currently zoned a C2, a commercial 2. The requested zoning is a PUD, and we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 02027. Garrett, 27. 02027.
Make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I think Mr. Walden and Mr. Kevin Watson are going to speak to this. James, if you would, for the
Very
people who are watching, would you kind of tell them what the change is from a C2 to a PUD, please?
Sure. So this is a rezoning going from a commercial zoning. As you may be aware of some history on this property, applicant previously wanted to put an apartment complex with 48 units on it with commercial fronting onto Donaghy. There, Donaghy at the corner. What they have done in this proposal via PUD. PUD is basically a plan unit development where the development plan sets the zoning for the property rather than one of the designated zoning categories in the city. What they're doing with this development application is spreading out the 48 units across the entirety of the property so that it's lower density than what was previously proposed. The way that the property is laid out, there will be 2 access points to the external of the property, one on Favre and one on Donaghy, and then everything else will be internal and within the development. Another one of the aspects of this, in going through the process, we've been able to, through the development process, to dictate what some of the building materials that will be used on there. So the development won't have vinyl siding. Additionally, they'll be composed of brick, stone, fiber, cement, wood. There will be no fences. We worked with the applicant to design this in a way, not we didn't design it, but make some recommendations to the applicant to face the structures towards the street rather than away from the street, so that when you drive along Favre or Donaghy, you're seeing the fronts of houses, and then they have rear access rather than having the back of house and a wall that faces the street, so that it'll be a little bit of a nicer aesthetic. With that, any questions or?
Could y'all understand that last part?
I couldn't.
You may need to repeat the last 15 seconds, James.
Oh, okay. So with the development, it's going to be facing the street. The houses are going to face the street rather than you have the back of the house towards there in a wall. This was a recommendation that we made to the applicant to sort of improve the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So in those locations, it'll have rear access from an alley that runs internal to the development there. And so that was sort of meant to be one provision of the PUD to make it a little bit aesthetically more.
I think it's going to look much nicer than what was proposed. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all have any questions for Mr. Walden or Mr. Watson? He's on here.
Mr. Watson, thank you for doing a PUD on this.
Sure.
It's always advantageous from at least my viewpoint to do it that way rather than going with a straight zoning on something.
I appreciate it. The planning department had a lot of input on, we actually followed some of their guidelines on their suggestions. And at first I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. And after they explained it to me, I figured it out. It's going to look a whole lot better.
You got smarter with the night sleep, didn't you, Mr.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry y'all can't see me. I think Mike Garrett turned my camera off. I really don't know how to turn it back on.
I'd like to say I appreciate houses around toward the street. I think that's going to be a whole lot better seeing the front of houses instead of the back of the houses.
Theo, I agree totally. I want this to be a good, neighbors, to the developments around it, and there's people's homes and livelihoods there. So we want to be good neighbors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
make
that.
a motion for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Need to waive the 3 readings first.
Yes, we already have.
I already did.
Okay, I'm
We
sorry.
have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to rezone property located at 1600 South Donaghy Avenue from a C2 to a PUD. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
I need the house.
Okay.
Sir?
Never mind.
Okay.
You're going to move down the road?
Yeah.
Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ledbetter,
Who'd he call?
Mr. Ledbetter,
Can't hear him.
There you
Yes, if that's me you're calling.
go.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Miss Isby.
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, council and Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you all very much.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a real estate contract to acquire property at 400 South Donaghy Avenue as being necessary for the Donaghy Avenue project. And we have a resolution to read for this. It's Resolution R2044.
Mr. Charles Finkenbinder will speak to this.
So this is, again, part of the Donaghy Avenue road widening project that's this is part of the phase one. This is going to put in sidewalks and also bike lanes. And this particular property is probably better known as the College Park Apartments. So the city is going to be acquiring a strip of land, and it's going to be acquiring it if you approve or authorize the contract at the appraisal price that the Department of Transportation obtained.
What was that price, Mr. Finkenbinder?
You know, yeah, thank you.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Go ahead, Mr. Finkenbinder. Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to acquire property located at 400 South Donaghy Avenue for the Donaghy Avenue Improvement Project. Any further discussion?
Do we have that price, Mr. Mayor or Mr. Finkenbinder?
We do not. Mr. Finkenbinder is going to get it for us. You want to wait a minute, Mr. Hawkins?
We can proceed and he can come back and tell us that in a bit.
All right, that'll be fine. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins?
And finally here, Mr. Mayor, is resolution authorizing mayor to enter into a real estate contract to acquire property at 2125 College Avenue. And this resolution is R2045.
Mr. Finkenbinder?
And this is, again, another of the properties that's being acquired to complete phase one of the Donaghy Avenue road widening project, intended to put in, among other things, a roundabout College in Donaghy. And the part of this acquisition is to put that roundabout in, and I can get that price as well. But the contract that is being proposed is for the price the property appraised for.
Okay.
And one thing I'd like to add too, that Mr. Finkenbinder's been working on about 24 of these properties along Donaghy and of course Tyler. This project is still on budget, and it goes with the appraisal or appraisals that was contracted by the city.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to acquire the property located at 2125 College Avenue at the appraised price for the Donaghy Avenue Improvement Project. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, sir.
Next up, we have our Public Safety Committee. And first up, we have an ordinance appropriating funds for replacement of the HVAC system for District Court. And Ms. Bryce will speak to this. This also has an emergency clause.
Thank you. So we're asking to replace several big items on this dollars last summer, and I do believe that this will be a cost benefit for us in the long run to just go ahead and replace that. So we're asking your permission tonight to replace this from John, and this is a procurement co-op.
Jamie, you broke up through about half of that.
Right.
Could you try it again, please, ma'am?
I was just saying that we spent several $1,000s trying to make the system last year, and we think that it would benefit the city if we go ahead and replace these parts.
Okay. And the cost is $17,457.61, council.
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, and y'all have any questions for Jamie?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
The proposed contract price, was that put out to bid, or where did the number come from?
Yes, sir. That is a bid through a procurement co. So it is bid on an annual basis, and they did the government.
Again, I'm sorry, Jamie, I'm having some problems with audio hearing.
No, it's you're not, it's not you, Jamie. We're having some technical difficulties. Would you repeat that again, please?
So this is under a big contract through a procurement co-op, Tips USA. But it was bid out, and that is bid out each year, and they did win the government contract for this. Did you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can. Is this a local contractor?
They're out of Little Rock.
And it's Tips USA?
Yes, sir.
That's the name of the contract vehicle that they use to purchase from, Andy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The co-op. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, any further questions? I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt.
Along with the emergency clause.
Yes, thank you.
Me too.
To adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause to appropriate funding for the replacement of the HVA system at District Court. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter, Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
and the emergency clause, Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Hey, Mark, can you hear us? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones,
I
Yes.
can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Did you do the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, those both passed 8-0. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties on this end, Mr. Ledbetter and Ms. Bryce. Next up, we have ordinance appropriating funds for turnout gear for the Conway Fire Department. Chief Planner will address this.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We received a purchase order in 2019 for purchase of turnouts. Once we received the turnouts, they were incorrect. We sent them back, and we're not going to pay for them until we got exactly what we ordered. Unfortunately, we didn't get the bill until February of this year. We're asking to roll over that money from 2019 to this year. So we can pay those turnouts.
Okay, could y'all understand, Chief Winter? Okay,
I think I did. Yes.
okay. Council, do you have any questions for Chief Winter?
No.
No.
Make a motion that we waive 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Move for adoption of the ordinance.
Second.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause to appropriate funding for turnout gear for the Conway Fire Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
and the emergency clause, Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Those both pass 8-0. Thank you, Chief Winter.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next up, we have consideration to dispose of electronics, information technology inventory, tasers, and GPS trackers from the Conway Police Department. I think Chief Spradlin
Yes, sir.
on vacation.
Okay. You got me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. Done some house cleaning during the COVID shutdown. So we've got a lot of things to dispose of, old security cameras, indoor cameras, laptops, desktops, some tasers, things that are not serviceable or just at end of life. So anything that has value, we will sell on publicsurplus.com through an auction. Anything else will either be e-waste or disposed of properly.
Make a motion to dispose of these items, these assets.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the request to dispose of the items for the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk to Chief Spradlin for just a moment.
Sure.
Chief Spradlin, I want to commend the Conway Police Department for an outstanding job over the past 10 days or so. Longer than that, but specifically the last 10 days or so on their handling of protesters, working with protesters in the city of Conway in the streets to keep issues from happening. And I wanted to say thank you for that. You did a great job of leading your men in that effort.
I appreciate that greatly. I can't say enough about what they've done. They really stood strong. Thank you for saying that.
And Chief, one other thing, I do have one problem over at your department right now. We are not accepting a letter of resignation from you. So go back to the drawing board.
I've already clicked the button. I'm sorry.
I second that, Andy.
Unclick it.
I kept it on my desk for a week and told him I could tear it up at any time.
Chief, you've done a great job. You've done a great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Sure has.
Council, I'll take a motion to waive the 3 readings.
So moved.
Can somebody second it?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
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 Passes 8-0.
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to appropriate grant funding to the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel,
Aye.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Next, we have an ordinance appropriating 2019 reimbursements from various entities for the Conway Police Department. Chief Spradlin.
General accounting ordinance, you guys have seen plenty of times, so just catching up on the year. Reimbursement.
Make a motion that we waive 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance 2031.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to appropriate funding from various entities for the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Mr. Grimes,
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter,
Yes.
Ms. Isby,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yeah.
Ms. Smith,
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Mel.
Aye.
Passes 8-0. Chief Spradlin, you're on the roll tonight. Next up, we have a resolution requesting the approval for donating funds from the Conway Police Department.
All right, so this probably requires a little explanation. For a number of years, we've had a Explore program within the department. That program has been active over the last about 2.5 years. There hasn't been any interest in the program. So the Explorers have raised money over the years. The local chapter of the FOP purchased a dunking booth for the Explorers. They would rent this dunking booth out to raise money to budget, trips, competitions, that kind of thing. Now that the Explorer program has been disbanded, basically, we want to take the remaining money, which is $13,814.26, and we'll split that in half. And we want to donate it to two agencies. One to be in the Conway Public Schools certain little free class pantry, which is the food pantry at the Conway Public Schools. And we want to give the other half to the Pine Street Backpack Program, which will go to our children for get ready for school next year.
Make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for the approval for donating funds from the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
This will be resolution R2046. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. And our last item tonight will be handled by Miss Isby. It's to consider to approve a nomination for the A&P committee. Miss Isby.
Yes, the A&P Commission met yesterday and unanimously voted to appoint Mike Coates to replace Alan Kaiser, whose term is up. And I will say that Mike Coates was the only applicant for the A&P Commission. So we're asking you to approve this appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the nomination of Mike Coates to the A&P Commission. Any further discussion?
Ms. Isby?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I was not able to be at that meeting yesterday. If the list had been as long as my arm, I would have still voted for Mike Coates for this position. Way overdue for Mr. Coates to be on the A&P Commission.
Yes, and he had applied previously too, so he was still interested and applied for a second time. So
Glad. Thank you.
I make a motion, we approve this nominee.
Second.
We've already done that.
Yeah, I thought we already did that.
Yeah,
I think I cut out my microphone. It's like I can't hear anybody, so I'm not sure.
That's okay. That's okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0.
Hey, I got a question before we go in.
Yes, sir.
When are we gonna get a chance to come back down there, man?
Probably the first meeting in July. It's we're kind of watching to see where our peak is, Mr. Jones, and our numbers are still somewhat climbing. So right now we're kind of shooting for the first meeting in July. If we peak out and start dropping, then we can easily do the next one here.
Just curious, man. I had people asking, so I thought I'd throw it out.
No, I appreciate you asking.
my neighbor across the street knocked on the window telling me she had her eyes on me. She had her phone with the council meeting.
Oh.
Can y'all hear me?
Do you have something?
Yes,
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know who has been down Tyler Street and noticed the new bridge there at the old swimming pool. They did an excellent job. And it turned out real well.
That bridge was built. There's actually another lane over there so that in the future, when they have to widen Tyler Street, that part's already done for them.
Yeah.
Mr. Finkenbinder has those prices for you, Mr. Hawkins, before we adjourn.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Charlie.
I would.
Okay, going to item 3 on the agenda. This is the property located at 400 South Donaghy Avenue, the College Park Apartments. The property being acquired by the city is 0.12 acres and was appraised at $33,189.
Total?
Total.
Yes.
That's total. Okay, thank you.
And for item number 4, this is the 2125 College Avenue acquisition, again for the Donaghy Phase 1 project, 0.024 acres, appraised $11,649.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. That is all I have tonight. You may have anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Y'all stay.
Thank you.